Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name is Brian, and I've talked a lot about Indicator Powerhouse Films in the UK here on the channel. I'm going to continue to do so because they continue to put out great product, and one of their great ongoing series is their Columbia Noir series, which is now up to at least its fifth box set, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I love these box sets, and if you're not collecting these, I don't know what to tell you. This is number 4. Just a beautifully put together set. I couldn't even bring them all over here because they're too heavy to carry. So here's number 3, just to remind you what these look like and how awesome they are. But today we're going to talk about number 5, which is a little different in terms of the other sets don't necessarily have an actor focus, whereas this one, as you can see, has a focus on Humphrey Bogart. And it's a bunch of Bogart and Bogart adjacent films. There's one in here that he's actually not even in. And it's another, solid set of Columbia films. And I'm a big Bogart fan from way back. He was one of the first actors that I got a credit for getting me into classic film. Seeing things like The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, The Big Sleep, To Have and Have Not. These were real touchstones for me when I was in college and really helped me understand the mystique of Bogart and how he was an icon and why people felt the way they felt about him. He really has a presence unlike almost any other actor I can think of. In terms of the way he looks, his size, his voice, his cadence, everything about him, there's things that just shouldn't even work, but they do, and I can't even explain it. So he has been an actor for me for a long time that has really been a favorite, and so I was really excited that Indicator was doing this. You can see they have 6 films in this set, and really nice looking set. Again, these boxes are well put together. If you fetishize physical media at all, they're nice to hold. They just have a smoothness to them, a texture that I really like. And they always come with these wonderful books. I mean, this is a full-on book. Not a booklet. This is an actual bound piece of printed matter. And it includes lots of great stuff here. You can see there's pieces on like every single film has something about it here, and then there's all kinds of extra little bits. I mean, it's 115 plus pages and just a really nice solid book. I mean, this is just the kind of thing a collector really can sink their teeth into, and I understand why people like me get obsessed with these sets. They just want to have them. They're so well put together, and we're not even talking about the extras yet. But let me talk about the movies. I'm going to go through the movies. Give you at least a little bit on something on each one. Let's start with Dead Reckoning. This one is from 1947. It stars Bogart and Elizabeth Scott. They're the big headliners in this. It is the story of 2 army buddies. We see them. He plays, what's his name? Rip Murdoch. That's Bogart's character's name. And his buddy, Sergeant Johnny Drake, I think they're coming back from the war, and they're ordered to travel to Washington, D.C., and then Johnny Drake finds out he's supposed to get the Medal of Honor, and weirdly, before he's going to get it, he hightails it out. He jumps on a train and goes away, and then sort of disappears. And then so Bogart, his character Rip, is sort of brought into this mystery of why did his army buddy disappear? What was he involved in? There's a greater conspiracy plot that's sort of chipped away at as we watch the movie, and it's a fairly straight noir once you get to about the 20-minute mark. There's a little bit more, army buddy investigating stuff that isn't quite as noir, but once you hit 20 minutes and Elizabeth Scott shows up in a bar, the movie shifts into a straight noir gear, and it becomes really enjoyable from that point. And it's just got like some good heavies and some good twists and turns, some good noir cliches play out. I dug it. For whatever reason, I hadn't seen it to this point, and that's strange because I like Bogart a lot. I like Elizabeth Scott. There's no reason I really hadn't checked it out. It's directed by John Cromwell, but I'm glad I got to see it on this disc. It looks very nice. It has, on the features here, an audio commentary with film scholar and preservationist Alan K. Rhodey, who is doing a lot of commentaries these days between Indicator and I think Kino and Flicker Alley, and he's all over the place, and he should be, because he's a great commentator and always has interesting things to say historically about the films, as well as just little asides. I like his little asides. There's something called A Pretty Good Shot, 17 Minutes in Appreciation by film writer and film programmer Tony Raines. Tony Raines is a guy who I've seen involved in a lot of releases like this as well. Something called Watch Over Tomorrow, a 16-minute short film directed by John Cromwell documenting the formation of the United Nations following World War II. And so that's what you get with this disc. Very nice. One of my favorites in this set, definitely. The other one that's one of my favorites is The Harder They Fall. This is a boxing movie, as you can see. And as you can also see, it stars Bogart again. And it stars Rod Steiger and Jan Sterling. There are some other folks in here that I will recall in a moment. But it's based on a novel by Bud Schulberg, who is a writer you will definitely know if you watch a lot of films from this period. And it's about a sports writer. It's directed by Mark Robeson, who came out of the Val Lewton sort of... I think he was doing films before that, but I think of him as working on the Val Lewton horror movies and then expanding out into noir and other things. And it's a sort of a message movie in a way, because it's about the boxing industry at the time. This came out in 1957, I think, 56. And Bogart plays a down-on-his-luck sports writer named Eddie Willis. And he is courted by a kind of scummy, racketeering kind of boxing promoter named Nick Benko, who's played by Rod Steiger in a really good, charming, evil, charismatic, kind of fast-talking role. And the idea is that basically Nick has found this boxer from South America, this giant guy named Toro Moreno. He's really big. Like, he literally looks almost like a giant. That he has brought over from Argentina and is going to make into the next big thing. And so he brings Eddie down to see an exhibition match, and they brings, one of the trainers into the ring to box with him, and it's immediately apparent this guy is not going to be the next big thing. He can't punch hard enough. He has a glass jaw. He gets knocked down right away. So it becomes a thing where it's like, it's not a scathing satire on the level of like a Network or Face in the Crowd or something like that. But what we end up having is that, Nick Benko's like, I've invested a lot of money in this guy. Like, he says like $1 million or something. So he's like, I need you to be a sports press agent for this guy. Build him up, make up some stuff. I need people to believe that he's a great boxer, because I want to be able to get him into some matches and, just build him up. And we don't see the scheme immediately. I mean, obviously there's a scheme there because he's not a good boxer. And Bogart's character, Eddie, is just desperate enough to take the money because he offers him like $250 a week plus an unlimited expense account. And he says, okay, I'll do it. This is a sports writer that Nick has been courting for a long time, and he's now so down on his luck that he'll take this job. But Eddie says, you can't do it in New York here. We got to take him to California. They go to California, and it becomes immediately apparent that Nick's plan is to have this boxer fight a bunch of people, pay the opponents to take a dive, and build him up to the point where he can get some kind of a title shot and make a bunch of money on him as they build him up, and build up this press about him. And it becomes this really big conflictual thing for the Bogart character because he actually has a buddy who's making he has a TV show, a sports related TV show, and he shows him some footage of an ex-boxer who's now like living on the streets, and you get this real humanized look at boxers. And so we see how this guy Toro Moreno is being used, and you immediately sort of feel for him, and you see how the managers versus the boxers are treating they treat the boxers as non-people. They just don't care about them, and they're just a means to make money. And there's a weird inverse of at the Adam Sandler film Hustle in here, just a little flip-flop, the idea of bringing this guy over from Argentina and then using him. It's different than Hustle, but for whatever reason it reminded me of Hustle. I really liked Hustle, so I recommend watching that on Netflix. But yeah, so this has some bite to it in terms of the commentary, in terms of what the Eddie Willis character has gotten himself into, and it's a great sort of sardonic, sarcastic Bogart performance. He's very flippant with Nick Benko, with a lot of people. He's lived life enough that he's going to be kind of a jerk about it if he's being honest. So, it's got a nice little message to it at the end, and it's well done. So it's Mark Robeson, another Bogart performance I hadn't seen, and one that I dug. So this particular set has a 4K restoration. It definitely looked very nice. Audio commentary with critics and writer Glenn Kenny and Farron Smith Neme, which is great. I really dug this track. Highly recommended. A great pair to do a commentary. I'm a big fan of both Farron and Glenn Kenny, and really enjoyed what they had to say about the film. And there's a lot to say. The final bout, 11 minutes. Critic and writer Christian Newland examines the making of the film and its relationship to the original novel. Bertrand Tavernier on The Harder They Fall from 2017, archival appreciation by the celebrated filmmaker and critic. Max Baer's Super 8s, footage of two famous bouts from the 1930s featuring the boxer and later fighting against Max Schmeling, then Primo Carnera. That Justice Be Done, 1945, 11 minutes. George Stevens' short on the Nuremberg trials, made by the Office of War Information and written by Bud Schulberg. So this is one of the Cadillac discs of the set. Great commentary, some nice extra stuff beyond that as well, and a great restoration. This is one of the reasons to get the set. If you're into Bogart and you haven't seen this restoration, it looks really good. So that's highly recommended. Next up we have Tokyo Joe. This one is from 1949, and it is another sort of war-adjacent movie. He plays a guy named Joe Barrett, who returns to Tokyo after World War II, where he once owned a bar called Tokyo Joe's and deserted his wife Trina, and they have a 7-year-old daughter, and she's remarried. He thought she was dead. He gets roped into this war criminal plot I don't want to really get into, and there's bad propaganda stuff happening. So it's complicated, but it almost opens like a Sam Fuller movie. Like he gets into Tokyo, and each time he passes a military checkpoint, some guy will call some military office and say, this passport number has just come through. Pass the info on to Colonel Dahlgren, whatever that means. And one of them is Hugh Downs from Leave It to Beaver. The dad, is a guy that interviews him and asks him why he's there and all this. And so, it's a decent little sort of melodrama with some intrigue to it, another one of those that I had not seen before. There was a lot in here that I hadn't seen. Also stars Alexander Knox, Florence Marley as Trina, and others. And it's just one that had slipped by me for whatever reason. As much as I'm a fan of Bogart, the man made a lot of movies, and I just hadn't gotten to all of them. So this one has a lot of stuff in the way of extras, and so we have audio commentary with writer and film historian Nora Fiore. She's great. The Nitrate Diva on Twitter. Definite follow if you aren't following. I love that they're using her with a great amount of frequency on these noir box sets. She's shown up a bunch of times, and she always does a nice job, and this is no exception. In a movie that I liked but didn't love, hearing her commentary made me enjoy it more. And then here's Bertrand Tavernier again on Tokyo Joe, 34 minutes from 2017, an archival appreciation from the filmmaker and critic. A Superstar Returns, 2022, 15 minutes. Archivist Tom Vincent assesses the career of actor Sasu Hayakawa, silent era star who made his return to Hollywood filmmaking with Tokyo Joe. Second Unit Photography, 1948, 11 minutes. Rare footage by Second Unit director Art Black and cameraman Joseph Byrock. And Emil Oster Jr. in Tokyo for use in the main feature. That's really cool. The Negro Soldier, 1944, 41 minutes. World War II documentary film intended as a recruitment drive for African-American enlistees, directed by Stuart Heisler, who directed this film, and now preserved by the National Film Registry for its cultural and historical significance. Very interesting film. Jim Pines on The Negro Soldier, 2010, 41 minutes, audio presentation by the author and lecturer recorded following the screening of the film at the London's BFI South Bank. So that is Tokyo Joe. Next we have Sirocco. And the tagline on this is Beyond Casablanca, fate in a low-cut gown lies in wait for Bogart. And this is, the basic idea is a mysterious American gets mixed up with gun runners in Syria. And this one is enjoyable and has a solid cast. One of the better casts in this whole set. In that you have Bogart, you have Lee J. Cobb as Colonel Faroux, you have Everett Sloan as General LaSalle, you have Zero Mostel, Onslow Stevens, and others. And this one is, I can see how the Casablanca comparison, it takes a minute to get to Bogart. There's a little Bogart showing up kind of stuff in this. But I love Lee J. Cobb, and he shows up in another film in a minute here. Incredible actor, always played great heavies, always played great everything. In fact, in the other film he's in, he doesn't even play a heavy really, and he's still great. So to see him and Bogart in the same movie is a big deal. And Everett Sloan, part of the Mercury Theater troupe, if you will. You see him in a lot of Orson Welles' films. I love to see him show up in other movies. But so this one is also interesting and has a commentary with film historian Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Josh Nelson, another duo who I don't know if I've heard on an Indicator disc yet, but I could be wrong about that. They've done some really fun commentaries for Kino Lorber, things like, I think they did Cool as Ice, and The All-Nighter maybe. I can't remember if I'm getting this wrong, but some 80s and 90s movies that are really great. But they're also wonderful on classic film. Just everything they do, I'm a big fan of. They're a great duo. So good stuff there. The South Bank Show, Bogart, Here's Looking at You Kid, 1997, 52 minutes. And that is an episode of the long-running British art television show series featuring Humphrey Bogart's son, Stephen Bogart, looking back at his father's life and career, which is fascinating to watch. It's interesting how much he looks like his dad, how much he kind of sounds like his dad. Just the stuff, as they go back through Bogart's life. It really is kind of a retrospective of Bogart's personal life, his marriages, and how his son is kind of discovering his dad through this. Like, it's clear that he knows things about his dad, but you get to see some revelations with his son. And one of the better features in this whole set, for sure, is on Sirocco. Okay. Knock on Any Door. Now, this is from 1949. Okay, I got to be honest about this one. My least favorite movie in the set. I think in part because, just trying to be honest here, there's long stretches with no Bogart at all. And the idea is that Bogart is an attorney defending a hoodlum played by John Derek. Now, have you heard any of the erotic 80s series that was done for You Must Remember This? Karina Longworth's great podcast. You definitely heard a section of it on John Derek and Bo Derek. And this is the John Derek that, became involved with her and was sort of a Svengali to her. It was very hard for me to get that out of my head when I was watching this. This is young John Derek acting, okay? And he's this delinquent, and I got to be honest, he kind of drove me nuts in this movie. He's just annoying in terms of the way that he acts in the film. He just overacts. I don't think he's a good actor. He just really took me out. And so when we had long stretches of the film, when it was him and focused on his backstory, basically how we got to the point with him that he's now on trial, the movie just totally lost me. When Bogart got back involved and he was the lawyer, it was one of those intelligent, well-spoken, well-thought-out Bogart performances. That stuff I kind of could get into, but the John Derek stuff just absolutely took me out. And so I just found the movie a little bit dull, if I'm being completely honest. But the Bogart stuff as a lawyer, like the intelligence and sophistication of that character is along the lines of, him in A Lonely Place or, Beat the Devil. It's just that kind of stuff where he's not playing the thug or the private eye tough guy. And I enjoy those performances quite a bit, on the opposite end of the thug, tough guy, private eye thing. So that was fun to see the variation, but John Derek just didn't work for me ultimately. So the movie kind of felt a little bit flat. This has an audio commentary by writer and film historian Pamela Hutchinson. Nobody Knows How Anybody Feels, 2022, 20 minutes appreciation by critic and film programmer Jeff Andrew. Tuesday in November 1945, 17-minute documentary short about the democratic process in America made as part of the Office of the War's American Scene and series and boasting Nicholas Ray as assistant director. So this one is directed by Nicholas Ray, which, like I said, a little bit of a letdown for me. I hadn't seen this. I had meant to see it, but just ultimately didn't quite work for me. And then the last film in the set is interesting because it has John Derek again. It's called The Family Secret. It's from 1951. I will say he works better in this film for me than he does in Knock on Any Door. And I don't know if the difference is a couple years acting experience or what. But he's also got some great supporting casts here. And the plot is more interesting to me, I think, because there's other people involved. But the idea is that John Derek's character plays this young man. We see him at the beginning of the film. He comes home, and we find out that he has accidentally killed a good friend of his outside a bar nearby. And his car's got mud on it. He's cleaning it off. He comes home to see his mother and father, who are hanging out with the parents of the kid he just killed. And again, this time we have Lee J. Cobb as the dad, who's also a lawyer. And soon after the son comes home and he's acting very weird, the dad finally gets it out of him. He's like, something's up. You know something, because he gets a call about the kid being killed. And he's like, I know you know something about this. What's happening? And the kid just out with it. He's like, I did it. It was me. And it becomes this thing where he's like, oh my God, well, we should go, you should turn yourself in. Or he's like, I'm assuming you want to turn yourself in. And the kid's like, I don't know if I want to turn myself in. So in this case, the Lee J. Cobb character knows the DA that's involved in trying the case, and he's going to take him down, and they go down to the office to have him confess, and the DA, they sit down with him, and almost immediately the DA is like, we got a suspect. There's a guy that the kid owed money to, and people saw them arguing, and people saw him ask the kid to step outside. We're going to pick him up right now. So immediately John Derek's character is conflicted, and suddenly backpedals and says, well, if there's anything I can do, decides basically not to confess. And so the family secret, because the other part of this is that the mother in this case, when he confesses to the dad and then the mother comes in, he's like, you got to tell her. So he tells her, and immediately it's clear that the mom doesn't want him to go to prison and is like, we just don't have to tell anybody. Nobody knows, right? And so there's this whole parental conflict and this morality thing. And I mean, I'm sure you can see where ultimately it's probably headed, but there is this whole tension of not telling for the movie that's intriguing. And so on that level, I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Knock on Any Door. And again, Lee J. Cobb, great in this kind of performance. Really sensitive and not heavy, and I really dug that. So this one has an audio commentary with professor and film scholar Jason A. Nye. The Negro Sailor, 1945, 27 minutes, World War II documentary short film directed by Henry Levin and conceived as a recruitment tool for the United States Navy. Very similar to that other thing. The Big Moment, 1954, 26 minutes, film produced by the United Jewish Appeal starring John Derek. So you get a lot of John Derek in this set, ultimately. But that is really everything you're getting here. Just an overview of the different films and that booklet, which is fantastic. So a really interesting addition to the Columbia Noir set, of box sets they're putting out. There is a new Universal Noir set coming soon from the folks at Indicator, so definitely keep an eye out for that. They've also got some really great stuff coming. The Swimmer in a wonderful, really deluxe edition. I mean, I've already gotten that from Grindhouse Films, but I'm very excited to get the Indicator version as well, as they've done a wonderful job with every version of a film I've ever had previously. I've gone to the Indicator version, and there's new stuff, and there's always something that I want to have. So excited for that. A new version of of Putney Swope, which has come out from Vinegar Syndrome previously, but which this will likely be my definitive version. Another new version of a film put out by Kino Lorber, and that is Diary of a Mad Housewife, another Frank Perry movie, which of course ties back into The Swimmer. And that one is seemingly better than the Kino version. It includes like a TV version and all kinds of stuff. So lots of great stuff to look forward to from Indicator, and I will be talking about those at some point down the line as well. But for now, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.